The year was 1998. And Roland Emmerich released upon the world his disaster piece, Godzilla 98, with the help of TriStar Pictures. As American fans looked upon Godzilla 98, some with likes, most with dislikes, TOHO Studios looked on in horror as pretty much their child, Godzilla, had been portrayed in such a way. So, as angels, if you'd say, came in and rescued the King of the Monsters and brought him back to their motherland to start a new Godzilla series, dubbed the Millennium Series. And for this film series to begin correctly, they had to make some drastic changes. And for the rest of the review / retrospective, I've made some changes as well. Friends, family, this is Godzilla Millennium, also known as Godzilla 2000 here in the States. Hey guys, Godzilla851 here with your Godzilla retrospective, and we are now in the Millennium series. Sorry about the dramatism in the beginning, but it's a new beginning for Godzilla. Got myself a little trimmed up for this. And what is this franchise what direction is this franchise going in? Well, very drastically different changes have been made to Godzilla, but still keeping it the same. Our film opens up to a dark and dreary night as our new G-Force-ish team, the Godzilla Prediction Network, headed by and his daughter, and newcomer, the photographer, are there to observe Godzilla and to, predict where he's going and see where, the story's going to take us. When suddenly they get a reading out at sea that a large body is coming towards land. Comes ashore as a night watchman at the watchtower sees a boat flying in the air. He looks closer through the fog, and we get our first glimpse of Godzilla in this film. Very different. However, still keeping true to the Godzilla franchise, as Godzilla begins stomping around, knocking over things, ravaging the land. As our heroes are taking pictures, Godzilla is actually chasing after them, showing how a chase sequence can work with Godzilla and not make it silly. Both with practical and CG effects. Now, the CG we'll get into later because I still feel that it has some hiccups in this film. Major hiccups, mind you, but hiccups. As they are able to avoid Godzilla, our photographer taking pictures of the King of the Monsters. Suddenly we cut to under the sea, and we see that this other group of, scientists are looking at something else besides Godzilla. They found a meteorite, and this meteorite is giving off this strange kind of energy. And they believe that inside this meteorite might be a new form of energy that the Japanese government can harness so they can stop using fossil fuels and stuff like that That's a big thing in these future Godzilla films. Trying to be a little more eco-friendly and trying to steer a little bit away from the nuclear energy and trying to use more healthier energy things, but, you know, it's a Godzilla film, we'll see what happens with that. As Godzilla goes back out to sea, and our photographer goes to turn in her pictures, however, Godzilla's radiation that he gives off fogged the film. So the photographer goes back to the Godzilla Prediction Network, as our main scientist for the Godzilla Prediction Network is going over his findings with other members of the GPN, and, you know, trying to look over different things about Godzilla, see why he came back after all this time. And you'll come to see that this film is ignoring the Heisei films, and kind of ignoring the Showa films. There's a couple of little hints that Godzilla may have existed back in the 50s, but I don't really concretely pan it down to say that Godzilla was in 54. So, about another day goes by as our photographer, she joins up with the Godzilla Prediction Network. Sorry, too many things to say. And, you know, she's paying her way in so she can get pictures, as our rival group of scientists begin bringing up the meteorite. And as the meteorite touches sunlight, it actually rises faster, and then stands completely erect. Sorry, I'm childish sometimes. In the sea. Seemingly no buoyancy. This thing's insane. It's made of stone, but there's a little piece of metal on it. So, Shinoda, our main scientist, goes out with his daughter and our photographer to go look at other areas where Godzilla is, or could eventually land. And they eventually do meet up with Big G, as Shinoda and the rival scientists are beginning to argue with each other. And Godzilla has a brief battle sequence on land. And we start to see that CG is starting to really fall apart for this film. At least the composite shots where Godzilla is put in with the background, and he's... Actually, this one scene here, just take a look at this picture. Yeah, where he's running against the helicopters, it just doesn't look right. In theory and in concept, this picture is awesome. I don't think the technology was there yet. Now, this movie was made nowadays. I bet it'd look awesome. It looks a little off. So then we get this other army guy, says he's got these goose crap missiles. Or as he says, the missiles will go through Godzilla like crap through a goose, so I call them the goose crap missiles. And they don't really do anything. As Godzilla is battling them, the meteorite rises from the sea completely and begins making like a wah 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 sound, and it goes to the battle scene and begins fighting with Godzilla, firing this massive yellow beam from inside of it, knocking Godzilla to the ground. As finally Godzilla begins powering up his atomic energy, and he breathes some atomic breath. It's orange in this movie. They really wanted to, you know, do some new, fresh ideas. And you know what? It's a good change of pace. It's not bad. I like it. When his dorsal plates light up, it seems like he's building up so much heat. It'll actually turn white hot, and it just looks really cool. Godzilla hits this meteorite, exposing some metal underneath it. You think it'd be Mechagodzilla, but no. It's actually a flying saucer, causing Godzilla to retreat. Yes, this thing beats Godzilla in a few hits, and Godzilla retreats. Not cool. As the flying saucer breaks off the rest of the rocks and then flies out into Tokyo. It begins downloading information. What's it looking for? Well, Shinoda goes out to the beach and he actually finds Godzilla cells. Yes, the same Godzilla cells from Godzilla 1989 and Biollante, who are causing people to kill each other, are now just random things left on the battlefield. And he begins looking at these cells. but he can't quite figure out what exactly all the cells do. So one of his science buddies on the rival team, he goes to him and he asks if they can use their equipment. And the main guy, Katagiri, we'll get into him later, says, "Okay, fine. You can use our technology as long as you share it with us." I'm sorry, the American dub, he sounds really silly in the movie, okay? I'm not making fun of him. His dubbing is funny. Go watch the American release of Godzilla 2000. He sounds funny, okay? And Shinoda finds this special thing about Godzilla cells, that they're regenerating all by themselves at an alarmingly quick rate. And they dub it Regenerator G1. Some backstabbing happens, but this flying saucer begins downloading all this information, mainly on Godzilla. The night comes and they feel that the flying saucer won't do anything because it seems to react to the sun. Well, that's not true. It keeps on doing its thing. And they set up these plasma bombs to destroy it. Some happening and happens, and nothing happens to this flying saucer. Shinoda's almost killed because Katagiri fire off the bombs quicker. It's just a bunch of craziness. When finally Godzilla arrives. And we have a small difference between the English version and the Japanese version. Some of the music cues are different. Mainly when Godzilla arrives in the American version, they play some Akira Ifukube music. In the Japanese version, they use Godzilla Millennium music, so, okay. As the flying saucer shuts down the city, we get Godzilla walking through the city, and we get to see something very odd about Godzilla. He is incredibly short in this movie. Which leads to a question, is this Godzilla Jr.? Well, we'll get into that after the movie. And Godzilla begins battling with this flying saucer. The flying saucer using these wire tentacles somehow to subdue Godzilla. He's using atomic breath, but it's not really doing anything. The flying saucer knocking a building on top of him, and then begins absorbing some Godzilla cells, namely Regenerator G1. And it begins to create a body for the alien creature inside of the flying saucer, dubbed Millennium. And is it just me, or does that thing look like the alien from Independence Day? Okay, maybe it's just me, but Godzilla is able to get up, and he destroys the flying saucer, not seeing Millennium. He begins moving forward, and he sees the Millennium is there, but it is also mutated into this thing. Dubbed Orga. And we get a heck of a battle sequence between Godzilla and Orga. These two are biting each other, punching each other, ripping at each other. Atomic breath is used. Shoulder cannons are used. And the scary thing about Orga is it is completely fused with Regenerator G1. So every bit of damage that Godzilla does to Orga, he immediately recovers, as Orga bites down on Godzilla and actually begins transforming into Godzilla itself. Yeah. Godzilla is able to knock it away as Orga spreads its mouth even further, looking like a Venus flytrap, and begins eating Godzilla. Yes, this thing begins eating Godzilla, and okay, there's all types of creepy there. As things seem grim for our King of the Monsters, he begins glowing orange and releases a huge atomic pulse. blowing off the head of Orga and killing Orga. Godzilla is victorious. He goes over to where the scientists are, he knocks over the top of the building, and, Katakiri defiantly standing there and yelling at Godzilla. I'm sorry, you gotta watch the American dub of this. He's like, Godzilla! He falls to his death. It doesn't show him fall to his death, this is why I'm laughing, but you know, it's just really funny. The Japanese version has a little more class to it, but you know, it's still silly. As Godzilla stomps through the city and breathes fire one last time as the movie ends, looking like he destroys all of Tokyo. Once again, they changed the end credits song from, you know, Kirifukube music to Godzilla Millennium music. And that was Godzilla Millennium / Godzilla 2000, and this movie's a blast. I'm so glad that they came back to basics with this for Godzilla. Let's talk about the design and whether this is Godzilla Jr. or not. Well, the design seems to take after Godzilla Jr. a little bit, except the neck was shortened to bring it to the shoulders to make him look like an adult Godzilla. And he sounds a little bit like Junior at some times, and his size would indicate that he didn't really grow after becoming Godzilla at the end of Godzilla vs. Destroyer. However, this is not Godzilla Jr. This is a complete reboot of the Godzilla franchise. If you want to know more about this, leave a link in the description of a kaiju discussion that GojiFan93 did. It's really good. Answers a couple more questions. He can answer a lot better than I can. And let's move on to Orga. Orga is a simple monster, there to get Godzilla back on his feet, pretty much there to do the job, to make Godzilla look good, and to reestablish Godzilla as our king of the monsters, and pretty much just die to put over the champ one more time. The thing about Godzilla in this film is that he had several design choices, as well as Orga did. Namely, the artist Yuji Sakai. Godzilla's supposed to look very different in this film. Not very different. He's supposed to have a couple little minor differences. Here, take a look. Now, I know that's the X Plus figure, but I can't find the original sketches and the original sculpts they did for it. And if I do afterwards, I'll put them in there as well. But he looked a lot more ferocious, but the way how he looked, he might have been a little more difficult to pull off, so they made it a little more traditional look for Godzilla, while keeping it different. Orga had several stages, all cool, awesome monster. The acting in this film, besides the funny parts, it was actually a really good cast and a really good, you know, showing for everyone in this film. Great way to get back to basics. Now, for Godzilla 2000 / Millennium, what do I give this film? I give this film an A. Not perfect, but a lot of fun, and a great way to bring the King of the Monsters back the way how he's supposed to be. Okay, guys, well, this is Coach at A51. I hope you all enjoyed. The song that played during the opening was done by Tablock 2001. Put a link in the description. Awesome guy. Does animation tests with different Godzilla stuff. Good stuff. He also did the Gojira A51 scroll at the end of the opening video. I'm going to put it at the end of this video as well, so you get to look at it one more time. Awesome guy. Go give him a check out. And we got more to come with the Millennium series. Hope you all enjoyed. You all have a good night. Please like, subscribe at the bottom. Gojira A51 out.